Hello and welcome! Silrace here with Star Citizen, and it is finally time to put out my thoughts on the FPS module of the game, the Star Marine as it is called now. And one thing to note right away though, considering that name they have decided to use, now please folks at the development end of this game, name every single dude, a militia guy assigned to guard duty on various space stations as a base marine. Please, will you do that? That would be fantastic, thank you. Anyway, all of this picking on other franchises and naming conventions and whatnot aside, let's us talk about this Star Marine. Also, quickly addressing background footage, it's there basically for a viewing pleasure. I'm not really gonna talk about that much, it's just mostly me flying random ships around, and also I had to put in some very funky stuff when it comes to the some animations of movement currently available for everybody to play around with. Anyways, the Star Marine itself has seen, well, an update or a couple by this point, and most of it is internal testing updates which we don't have really access to yet, and so forth. We have gotten a nice amount of pictures though with the armors and whatnot, and I'm firstly going to address that bit and issue and whatnot. I frankly feel like they made some of the armor more bulky. Like, granted, they explained that they wanted the armors to be more bulky, like this is what they did, essentially. Like, make them a little more bulky so they look more protected. The more and more we move to the future, if you look at the, well, real warfare at this point, the less the armor is actually looks like a freaking armor. Like, if you compare Middle Ages, like, you know, blacksmithed armor to current era Kevlar armors and whatnot, to what we will have in the future, it is more and more likely that armor is, well, less of layered plates and whatnot. It is more going to resemble a more form-fitting clothing. So it is less and less in the way as you, well, traverse battlefields and whatnot. It's like, as much as people dislike this concept of chainmail bikini or a woman where you can actually see her curves through the armors and whatnot, that is essentially the direction current era is already heading into, to make the armor firstly very comfortable to wear, and secondly not be in your way when you do stuff, while still being protective, obviously. So while I can completely understand their reasoning of like wanting to bulk out the armor, I think they are heading a little bit to the wrong directions. Like, the armor needs to not be any more bulky than it is shown in the screenshots at all. Like, please don't go that direction, especially if you're gonna add like personal shields and whatnot to players as well, in which case it shouldn't matter if folks are running around in their underwear if you have a like some sort of an absorption shield bubble basically around you, right? So with that all out of the way, the screenshots are kind of nice, especially the screenshots for the new scopes. It's like, I kind of enjoyed that, because majority of the scopes didn't have too big of an effect on the, you know, real estate of, well, how much you can see. Like, Iron Sight basically still kind of bad, but typically games go in this route where Iron Sight is worse than basically every other sight, for whatever reason. Like, I have gotten used to the Iron Sights in, well, reality. Anyway, there seems to be couple sites which take way too much space, in my honest opinion, out of the world, and also I have to say that the ones where they shown the red dot sites, the animations of them, and having it blur out the stuff surrounding the site, that is wrong way to go about it, in my honest opinion. Because if you shoot a lot in real life, you learn to shoot with your other eye open, and it really doesn't blur out your vision like that when you are like shooting stuff. It's like, granted, you focus a little more into the optic, obviously, but there is no real blurring effect going out there. So like, obviously it depends a little bit from person to person, but yeah, there is that. Movement, obviously, well, I'll just quickly go over the movement. Like, some of the movements in the, well, Arena Commander, I suppose, are right now very, very clunky, and they are more of a placeholder, and this is something I'll just be honest about and say that I have never been a big fan of anything which is placeholder. It's like, when you put something placeholder in place, yeah, I understand why you do that stuff, right? I know why placeholders are being put in. However, when you put in a placeholder something, you give players, well, all player base, well, typically unfinished product, right? It is a placeholder after all. So the players will have something to look at and play around with. Granted, that is kind of fine, but you will also create doubt to the players who are like, is this how bad the actual end product will be? Because that you will always create that doubt. And that is one reason why I am not a big fan of placeholder stuff. Once you are ready to put something in, wait until it is finished and then put that in. You don't necessarily need to do placeholder stuff, in all honesty. That's just my opinion on it, because it is, from the consumer point of view, it is better to give the consumer the finished product. Like, this is how it is, like, enjoy it. Instead of like giving pieces like, yeah, you know, this is like half of it this works, right? And then we will have the rest half, like the ones which are fixed, like coming in the future. So like, from the consumer point of view, that is a little bit of the worst way to go about it. Because if people don't like the original stuff you give, they might not stick around to find out what the, you know, fixed stuff is. Alright, so let's talk about a little bit about this whole, frankly, I previously talked about the stances and all that stuff, so I'm not really gonna go more into the stances. The fact they have spoken about a new grenade throwing animations and melee stuff and whatnot, having multiple melee attacks is fantastic, please, and also don't ever give us a one-shot melee attacks. Because, goddamn, they mention it, right now it isn't, but I hope it will never be. Because it's that whole backstab and whatnot animations from various other shooter games get really, really tiresome when someone just, you know, runs around and stabs you in the toe with a knife and you die. So like, makes no sense whatsoever, but oh well. So please keep that away. And also, the grenade throwing, I would more love to see be the grenade that when you throw a grenade, it just doesn't appear out of your pocket and get launched. You actually have to pull out the grenade, you have to actually aim and throw the grenade. So you don't just, you know, throw the grenade while you have your rifle out. Because that is something which pisses me off about the, well, many shooters out there, where when you press a grenade button and it just appears out of your pocket and just flies somewhere. It's like you have a, well, belt-mounted grenade thrower, essentially. It's how I typically would like to call it, and I absolutely hate that. So if you're gonna put in a nice grenade animations and whatnot, then make us throw the damn grenade, make us pull it out and throw it. And also, make it so that you pull, from animation point of view, these days you have pins in the grenades. I don't know how they plan to do the futuristic grenades for this particular game, but please make it so that you actually pull the pin before you, as you throw. You don't run into the situations which are kind of funky in various games, where you, as soon as you pull the grenade out, you pull the pin out of the grenade. And then you put the grenade back into your pocket, which is like, typically a bad idea. Granted, you still, in real life, grenades, you have to still release the handle. But when you put the grenade into your pocket without the pin, the handle typically gets released. So you would have exploding pants. Anyways. So I have to say I kind of like what I have read and checked. It's like all the you know, aiming down sights animations being fixed and done well, and all the crouch and so forth. And also I really like the idea of like not having instant stop, because granted it's going to take a little while for people to get used to the fact that you don't instantly stop when you start moving. That is something people will have to get adjusted to, and many people will complain about it because it is different than has been done in previous games. I am completely okay with it, because my own personal favorite shooter still to this day, well, aside of PlanetSide and PlanetSide 2, those two were fun, my own personal favorite shooter always has been Tribes, and there you move like crazy and you don't stop instantly. It's like the way you stop instantly is you die. So yeah. So I am completely okay with that. I welcome the change personally, because it's gonna make fights and whatnot so much more interesting. It's going to make mobility in such a way that you have to actually think other things than just well, can I peek this corner or not, because it's like, how fast can I approach this corner to peek it in such a way that I have the advantage over someone who is already staring at the corner with their weapon raised, and so forth. That is gonna be interesting. And also I have to say that they mentioned prone animations being much improved. With the previous video where I had my impressions over the current placeholder animations, that prone animations were garbage. Alright, prone animations were completely other weirdness, so it's like you ended up with frog-throated dudes and whatnot. I was having a good laugh at it, so yeah. If they have fixed all that, that is fantastic, right? I'm completely all over that. So I'm going to finish this here without too much other things to really talk about. Just a couple quick fears I have, like when we get to play this thing, I hope it works, alright? Like, there is a lot of stuff here. There is a lot of stuff here, to put it mildly. So I am really hoping that the animations really actually work when we get to play it, and I am hoping that they don't overdo the stuff. Like, when you add in too many things, you might overdo the whole damn thing to the point where it is it can get really overwhelming for the players. Like, change stuff, like putting new features, putting like new ways that you have to, you know, approach a shooter game. Granted, I love that, but don't overdo it to the point where it is like people have no baseline basically when they go into the game. It's like that's basically what Tribes did, and it also happened, well, for the Tribes I suppose it was originally a coding bug which caused the skiing issue, and then it turned into a game, but it was also a very different shooter from most typical shooters, so a lot of people didn't really like that. Just how it goes, but it's like that might be a little bit of a fear I have. It's like, if you overdo the shooting component and overdo all the other stuff, you might get people not really enjoying that much. After all, you are trying to make a, you know, working first-person shooter game in addition to making a working space game, all in one big package. And so I'm hoping they don't like try to cram too much stuff into one to sacrifice the other, basically. So yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. This is basically some of my thoughts and impressions on currently on the, well, what all information has been released to us, and all the, well, little bit of thinking I have been able to do myself playing, and looking at some really nice screenshots. As said, thank you very much for watching.